We can edit that out! We can edit that out! Hey! We can edit that out! Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. This is episode 9 of We Can Edit That Out.
Can you believe it?
Can't believe it. Where is it? Have the days gone? I'm Jack.
I'm Rob.
Still.
At least that has not changed.
After all these years, we're still Jack and Rob. I'm creeping up on 50 now. I've had a lot of birthdays.
That's a lot of birthdays.
That's a lot of birthdays, but I'm not the oldest person I know, believe it or not. I think I'm the oldest person you know, though.
No, I know some older people.
No, I'm just kidding. So, Rob, I want to know this. We talked last time about this episode is going to be about getting old, right? I mean, I'm old, so I can't really remember so good. But what's the best part about getting old? Let's talk about the fun things about getting old.
Just being that much closer to death.
That's not fun. I mean, okay, when I was young, I thought getting old might be like being Benny Hill, just chasing young girls around and, a soundtrack plays the whole time and you're cool, And it's not like that. You're not cool as you get old,
I do think there's actually a lot of nice things about getting old.
Yeah, what's the positive points?
Well, I would just say in general, and this might sound weird, but just having knowledge and wisdom in general. I think I spent so much time in my teens and 20s just like making horrible mistakes and learning things the hard way and stuff. And after a while, you actually end up learning things and you figure out how to live life in a fun but productive and semi-healthy manner. I mean, it's not the most, I don't know where I'm going with this. I just got really sad.
Right. We were trying to keep this episode not about being sad getting old. It's like, no, getting old is actually cool. No, it's not. But let's try and convince people that it is somehow. Let's do a little magic dog and pony show where we're like, no, actually, you have a lot to look forward to as you get old. Hey, when I go to a bar now and there's one chair, I get the chair. Because it's like, old man chair. And everybody respects that. Okay, that's it. I think the respect you get as you get older is kind of cool. I mean, a lot of you go to a punk show, still a punk concert, and a lot of the younger kids look at you like, what the fuck are you doing here? But a lot of them also look at you like, oh, cool, this guy's been in it and is still in it, and everything he stood for is still relevant and didn't give up on the dream, the dream of this is how we are, we don't have to succumb to society's expectations of what we're supposed to be, we're still doing it our way, and I like that,
I've always felt like if you make it to 30 and you're still engaged in punk, you should get maybe an award or something.
Like a lifetime achievement award.
What's the opposite of achievement?
Right. Right? What is the opposite of a lifetime failure award?
Yeah.
I think that's the opposite of achievement.
The weird thing about this to me is when you're first experiencing punk and you're a teenager or something and you have this new world of discovery. Part of that discovery are these sort of messages that are being kind of driven into you. These things live fast, die young.
Right.
No future, no hope.
Right.
There's sort of this concept that your youth is going to terminate in a finite amount of time and you'll never become an old person because there's no future, because everything is destroyed around you and the world is ending or whatever. So when you get older, you're no longer a kid,
right?
But you're also not the same as other people your age that you grew up with, because they never entered this weird neverland zone of punk.
I mean, it is different talking to other people our age that never really got into anything cool.
It's true.
A lot of people don't get into anything cool in their lives. I feel pity on them, but whatever. I don't hold myself above them, but it's just it's a different way that we've experienced the world, you know.
Maybe one cool thing about getting old, particularly if you're neck deep into subculture like we've been for decades, I don't know if it necessarily halts the aging process, but it alters it. It's different. I know so many people in the punk scene that just still have this like youthful wonder about them. And I wonder how much of that actually is because who they are as a person, or is there actually some sort of like anti-aging serum in, you know, this music and this lifestyle?
I think that a lot of things that drag you down in life are the dreams that you're supposed to have. You know, I think not to talk shit about anybody who has kids or is married or owns a house and multiple cars and 1,000 TV sets or whatever, but I think the drive to acquire all of this and the stress that having all of this puts on a person kind of makes you old, you know. And I feel like since neither you or I have really had that drive to have those things, that it's kind of kept us young. Does that make sense at all?
I think there's something to that. Maybe it's not necessarily just the possessions part, but more of like what your role in society was supposed to be. I know plenty of punk people that own houses and have kids, and they're not beaten down by those pursuits by any means.
Yeah. I think that's part of getting old is not really being able to follow the rules so much anymore, you know.
Well, it's kind of the advantage too, because when you are older, you get to you become exempt from rules.
A lot of rules you do. It's like, he's old. What are you gonna do? You know, he's just gonna do his own fucking thing. Fuck off! I do what I want. Yeah, he doesn't have much longer to live. Let him enjoy himself.
Yeah. No, but what I meant was like I think, you know, as you're talking about the sort of the dream, like at least in the US, there's this concept of the American dream. You know, you graduate from college, you go right into, you know, working your career job, and then you acquire land and you build a family and you take your kids to Lake Tahoe on Labor Day or whatever normal people do. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
You know, so maybe
I like it when you stop when I have to open a beer.
Well, I'm the one who has to edit this.
I know. It should be called He Can Edit That Out.
No shit.
And Rob's the one doing all the editing.
He can edit that out, and everyone sits around and complains why it's not ready yet.
Anyway,
you can't rush genius, man.
All right. I think this episode should just be you and I talking shit as old guys. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's like, whoa, was that the episode about being old? Yeah, two old guys fucking talking shit. There you go.
No,
the definition is the thing. You know.
So what I was meaning to say is that. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think it's
I don't know either. I'm going to take a picture of you talking. Oh, you got a frowny face.
I'm old now.
But
okay. So here's a funny thing.
What?
So I was helping my friend Zania move to a new flat, and lots of heavy lifting. There was a distro in there as well. You know, we had a bunch of people, and you know, had a good system. We did the whole job in like 2 hours, which is great. You know, I felt fine afterwards, and you know, went about my day, went to work.
Only old people go about their day. I went about my day. Did you, Grandpa?
And I went to the corner shop to get a phosphate, and
I got a couple Maltons. Quarter each. Can you believe it?
Back in my day, could get 2 for a penny. Now, I woke up this morning and I felt like I had been hit by a bus.
Yeah.
Possibly carrying anvils.
Okay.
Like just every muscle in my body.
That was
just
very
fucking
rude
wrecked.
of the bus driver.
I know, right? With so many anvils. It's not cool. Slow down. This isn't speed.
It's not fucking Grand Theft Auto.
So bouncing back from things is a little harder when you get older.
This is true.
Hangovers, like the one I'm looking at right now across
come
the
on.
table from
Yes,
me, is
okay.
get pretty harsh.
No, I think I've drank off my hangover by now. Yeah. I showed up early for the podcast, although I was late, but
No, you didn't. We're like an hour late.
I mean, yeah, I was an hour late, but then we still took 2 hours to start. So yeah, I got a little bit drunk in the meantime. I don't know how that happens. I mean, if people don't understand, we just hit record and you're hearing like a slice of just how Rob and I talk to each other anyway, you know. Now Rob's taking a picture of me. I didn't say cheese. In Germany, do you say Käse when you get a picture taken, or do you say like?
I've heard people say it.
Wie geht's?
I've heard people say Käse.
Yeah,
But I don't know if they're just joking.
Okay. German's joking. Remember the first time we came back from the first European tour that we talked about in the last episode? People were like, "So, what are Germans? How are they?" We were like, you know, Germans are kind of like this. Oh, you dropped a spoon. Oh, did you see? He dropped a spoon. A year later, that was the guy who dropped the spoon. Like, I don't really get it. Okay, explain to me why that is still funny, you know?
I will actually have to say, most of the Germans I know here are pretty fucking hilarious.
This is true. We do hang out with the funny Germans, but here's the thing. You do have this differentiation here. You have the funny Germans and you have the not funny Germans. And usually the not funny Germans are the older ones.
Yeah.
The ones that grew up when the wall was still a thing, you know?
Yeah, that's true. It's very true.
That's an interesting part of getting older. You know, what did you live through?
But I mean, honestly, when I start thinking about American culture, it's not that different. I think there's unfunny, weird older people everywhere.
Yeah, this is true. The grumpy people in every city that just have that permanent frown.
Maybe it's just so gray here that it
Well, I mean-
builds that character more stereotype.
I mean, it's the weather, it's the history. There's a lot of things that have happened in Germany's history that are nothing to joke about. That weighs heavily on the German conscience.
Yeah.
As it should, but you still got to move past it and still find something to laugh about. You know, you help somebody move and you're in pain the next day just from lifting a few things, you know, and you still got to be able to laugh in life. I think that's the most important lesson about getting old is still try to find stuff to laugh about, because I think that's the only thing that's important.
Yeah. And I think like the people who really have this sort of like unwavering seriousness about them, or people that are only concerned with acquiring wealth, it will change them physically and it'll age them more rapidly than it would someone who's just kind of hanging out through life and, you know, experiencing stuff and having fun.
I mean, I'm a stone's throw from 50, and I still really don't have that many gray hairs to where people much younger than me with the wife and the kids and the career and all these kids are giving me gray hairs. And I think about it, I'm like, is that really a thing? Because I always thought like getting gray hairs was a genetic thing, biology. But man, I really don't have that much gray for how fucking old I am. And I look at people much younger than me, gray as fuck, with these fucking, the lives you're supposed to have.
Yeah.
And I think, is it really a thing? I guess you could Google it. Do kids really give you a gray hair?
Well,
we could Google it.
I mean, I know for some people like who've gone through extreme stress or trauma and stuff like that, they went gray or saw some terrible, horrific, life-changing event or something that can like gray people out for sure.
I'm all grayed out, man.
I mean, you can see like anytime a U.S. president comes into office, their before picture and after picture, like it looks like they aged 15 years or 20 years or something like that. Yeah. There's a genetic component to that, but there's also sort of like a relativity component
So stress does make you age faster.
I mean, everyone has stress. For people who handle it well or figured out a more positive way to process the stress and react to it, maybe they age slower.
So my dad always used to say to me, insanity is hereditary. You get it from your kids.
That's a good dad quote.
Not a fountain of wisdom, my dad, but he had a few that stuck with. But speaking of my dad, that is part of getting older, is watching your parents die. And you haven't experienced this yet, but
No, been close,
yeah,
but haven't experienced that.
right. It's a strange thing. It really makes you feel alone on the planet, because these are the people you grew up with that have your back no matter what. And then when they're gone, you realize, shit, this is all I got. You know, it was me. But my dad died several years ago. And it was a profound change in my attitude towards the world, because I realized, like, it's just you. And you think you have these things in life, but you really fucking don't, you know, and you stop taking it granted as much. Here's a funny story. I'll tell you a funny story about my dad dying. All right. Okay. It's not really funny, but maybe it's engaging. I think that's what we're doing here, is not necessarily telling the funniest anecdotes, but maybe they're engaging. So my dad dies in Las Vegas. I was the one who was there when he died. He died in his house, and I was the one taking care of him, which is a strange thing. We did hire hospice, but then I don't actually know what happened. It was weird. So I was the last person there when he died. Anyway, I called up the ambulance or whatever, the paramedic, to come and take away a fucking dead body. And they came, took him away. And he had told me this whole time, he couldn't even talk. He was stage 4 cancer. He couldn't even talk at this point. But he pointed at this brochure from a funeral home. Like, this is it. I was like, okay, cool. So when the paramedics came, I said, yeah, I showed him the brochure. I'm like, you got to take him here, because this is where his plan is, you know? So they took him there, and they called me in the morning and said, we don't have this person on file. Like, well, what do you mean? I said, we don't, you dropped a dead body. You had the paramedics drop a dead body at our door. We don't know who he is or why he is even here or what the fuck you are all about. I said, oh, well, he told me in sign language, sort of, that this is where he was supposed to go. Well, we got no record of him. Oh, fuck. So, what happens now? I said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't even know what's going on here. Can you even, these are the things you have to deal with when you get old, is dealing with, what do you do with dead people? So I had to find that out real quick, and they said, well, you can have him cremated. Oh, fuck. Okay. How much does that cost? They said a number, and I just came down to Las Vegas where he died, with the money in my wallet, you know? I look at my wallet, I'm like, shit. And I'm on the phone with them. I'm like, I don't have that. And they were like, oh, right. And they said I needed his social security number. And I was like, I don't have that either. They said, what do you have? I said, I have nothing, you know? Well, you got to get all this shit and get back to this. You got to get some money. You got to get a social security number. Da, 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 da. So I called up my mom, who hadn't talked to my dad in, like, you know, almost 50 years. She said, I don't fucking know his social security number. I don't know how I ended up getting that. The house he owned, I was in his backyard, you know, just with a phone, stressing out, like, what the fuck do I do now? These are the adult problems. You know, how do you get through this? So I got through it. Somehow I got his social security number, and I ended up calling the funeral place back with his social security number. I said, I can't afford to have him cremated. What can we do? And they said, well, here's one option. I'm like, cool, give me an option. He can donate his body to science. We can test his bone marrow to see whether his skeleton is valid for scientific experiments. I said, fuck, cool, yes, do that. How much does that cost? I said, well, if he qualifies, it'll be less than $100. And I had just around that in my wallet. I said, okay, perfect. I mean, a lot of people say I want my body donated to science. I straight up fucking did that. Said no, test the shit out of him. You know,
That is an incredible story.
it was a lot to go through. I think I was not even 40 at the time. I think I was 39, and I had to sit there in a backyard in Las Vegas with my phone, going like, "What the fuck do I do with a dead body?"
So he didn't tie up his estate or leave any kind of
He was like
preparation.
He was like me in that regard. Like, figure it out, and okay, I'm done. Make the kids fucking do it, you know?
Yeah.
So that was really that should have given me gray hairs. I don't know if I really kind of expressed the gravity of what all that was in the way I told it. But that was like some serious fucking shit. And the thing is, all of us will have to go through that at some point, you know. Hopefully we outlive our parents. That's the hope, and that's our parents' hope. But what do you do when it actually happens, you know? I think most rational and sane people die in hospitals or with hospice. Somehow I ended up as the one, you know. I was just, yeah, it was so fucking surreal, you know.
Wow.
You know this? Okay. I'm going to tell you this. Maybe this is not going to be the funny episode. Maybe this will be the heartfelt episode. But when he was just on his way out, I sat there next to him and I said, okay, what do you see? And he said, I see a forest. And I said, okay, cool. Keep walking. He's like, I don't want to keep walking. I'm like, yeah, but you kind of have to. This is it, you know. Now what do you see? Well, I still see the forest. I go, okay, cool. Keep walking. Just keep walking. And then in his mind, I think he kept walking, and then he was dead. And that was it. Me in a fucking empty fucking house in Las Vegas with a dead person right there. I walked my dad out of life. You know, wow. It's a super, super strange thing that I went through, but no real good joke on the end of that one. That's how it happened, you know. And I hope nobody ever has to go through that, you know. It's a very, very traumatic thing for me, but maybe some of these episodes are not about the funny story. They're about the like cathartic story. Yeah. Cathartic?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. We wanted to start out with something funny. I started out with something fucking brutal, you know. But how do we recover from that whole part?
But I mean, isn't that kind of what getting old is all about? Is recovering from that part?
Yeah.
You know? I think this is one really strange thing, particularly when we're living the lifestyles that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Once you reach a certain age, you really start seeing your friends pass. For me, that was really when I first kind of started getting this wave of people my age that I had spent a lot of time with starting to pass away. It really alerts you to just your sense of mortality in general. And that especially compounded when, you know, your family or your parents start having health issues and stuff. And yeah, bouncing back from that, I don't know. It's
I mean, we've all had to do it. We've all had to have very close people to us die and then bounce back from it. But I thought the other day, I mean, with Kyle dying, you know, that was probably one of the hardest things that's ever happened to me in my life. You know, even beyond what happened with my dad, you know, with Kyle, that's just that was the worst, and I still am dealing with it. But so I think about all of it a lot. You know, I do. And I thought about it as like, but the whole point is life is movement. And when you die, that's the end of your movement. So the whole way to get over it is to just fucking keep moving, you know, and in whatever aspect that takes you. Movement doesn't have to mean, you know, like getting up and walking. It can mean just like still living. You know, doing whatever it takes because you have this gift of life and you just keep doing it, you know, and the more you do it, the more you can get past, you know, whatever traumas have happened to you.
Yeah. I think people with these larger than life spirits tend to overcome stuff a lot easier than someone who's just completely defeated.
But I think people who are defeated got defeated at an early age. I don't think there's anything special about us that have, like, oh, we can do this, oh, this other person has been defeated. It's like, yeah, but I think they got defeated early.
Yeah, like they started out defeated.
Yeah. I
weird.
don't think anybody decides to be a pathetic character,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just beaten up from a early age,
I mean, it's,
This episode is We Get Real.
we get real old.
That's it. Best birthday. What's the best birthday you ever had? Well, what's a quintessential birthday?
The first birthday I had after I moved to Seattle.
Yeah. Was it in the Blood Clot house?
It was. Turned 19. Jay Ford was turning 30. He cut himself some Tri-Hawks then.
Right. We thought he was so old back then, too. We were like, wow.
He's 30.
30. What do you do? I guess we throw a party for him. Does he still party? 30.
We had a joint birthday.
Who parties at 30?
We had a joint birthday, and like that birthday really sticks out to me. But also that was like me starting a new life in a new city. I just like found a network of friends. I was living in like a fun house with like cool like people I admired and respected, and it was like awesome. This is now my city. I'm like living here. I have a photo, which we'll put it. Maybe we'll put this on Instagram.
Okay, so follow us on Instagram. It's at symbol.
Well, it was at the last party.
We'll edit that part in.
It was I see what you did there. It was at the last party at the Blood Clot house, and the four of us that lived in that room, minus Maya because she wasn't there, took a photo.
So you, Ben, Chris, and Kyle lived there for a minute too, didn't he?
No. Kyle didn't live in that room.
Who was after Chris? It's one of you fucking kids.
This is one of you kids.
I don't know. Like we said this in a previous episode. Anybody younger than you is a kid, and sometimes even people older than you are kids. So how can you be still a kid at our age?
I think it's a state of mind.
Perpetual drunkenness?
I guess. I mean,
it is a state of
mind.
mind.
When I wake up in the morning and I'm like getting ready to do whatever, mentally, I don't really still see myself as like a grown up, even though I know I am.
Right.
Like I'm an adult, but still there's this like piece of me that is looking through the same like punk lens that I was when I was a teen. I still have that kind of identification.
Right. I mean,
but I know I'm not
a
kid.
Everybody says that about getting old. It's about how young you feel, but everybody looks in the mirror and goes, who the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Because we all still have this internal view of ourselves that's 22.
Yeah. I think another interesting thing about it too is like when you're younger, time moves very slow.
Yeah, I think.
No, it moves very slow.
Okay, you're right.
Because, particularly when you're a teenager, you're like, when am I going to be 18? Then finally you're 18, you're like, when am I going to be 21?
I think I was just thinking about this whole pandemic we've been living in, and like how slow time has been moving.
Yeah, well, pandemic's a different story.
Yeah, that's a different podcast.
We can COVID that out podcast. Right. Maybe it was right around the time I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
And like life really was like kicking into gear, and I was really starting to figure shit out. The years started moving exponentially faster one after the other.
Okay, you're right. I feel like I just turned 48, and now
I feel like I just moved here, and I've been living here for 6 years.
I know,
almost.
Right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy to me to think. I was looking at I was
still
going through
don't
some
understand
documents.
the language. 6 years.
You're getting there. He was Duolingoing right before we hit record.
Yeah,
so.
but I didn't finish my lessons.
Oh.
I didn't, because we started talking.
Oh. Hope you got something to save your streak.
Yeah, I got a streak freeze.
Got enough jewels to save your
Speaking of jewels, I am the only person who calls Julie Jules, apparently. So speaking of getting old, I have noticed that I was talking about how I'm not very gray, but my gray hairs are super, super curly. And I look at it in the mirror. I mean, I put enough shit in my hair to still try and look punk that you don't really see it. But when I don't have the shit in my hair, my gray hairs are super curly. And that's part of getting old, is having curly gray hairs, but also thinking about, like, how do you deal with that? I'll figure it out in the future. Wait, what happens when my whole head is curly gray hairs? That's for the future. Just put more soap or whatever into it to straighten it out. That's fun. What's acceptable to still rock as a punk fashion at an old age? I mean, could you or I still pull off a blue mohawk with bondage pants and a studded leather jacket with discharge painted on the back? You know, I feel like I still have my studded jacket from my 20s and 30s. And anytime I put it on after all that, I'd look in the mirror and go, yeah, no, that's not for you anymore. You know, you don't get that option. You know what I mean?
Why do you think you don't get that option?
I don't know. I think it's just a thing when you look in the mirror and it just does not look right. I don't think there's any like sort of like thing. I think I just look in the mirror like, oh, it's just, that looks just weird on you, you know?
I guess the way I've always thought about it is like the general nature of punk was always about change, right? It's always about like almost evolution and growth in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So
I think it should be.
If you're still wearing the exact same thing that you were 40 years ago,
right?
I think some people can really pull that off and make it work.
Yeah.
But it kind of depends on who they are and what they're interested in. Like I saw The Damned perform a few times, and one of their shows was like the 35th anniversary tour or something. They came to Seattle.
Oh, was that the one at it was at the Showbox?
It was at the Showbox.
Yeah, I was there with Brian Hopper.
Yeah, I got to shoot that show. So I have like great photos of that show. But Captain Sensible, guitarist, had his fucking leather jacket that's in all of the photos from like Damned and like all of these like old iconic pictures of him. He was wearing the same fucking jacket, and I'm sitting there in the photo pit taking pictures, and I'm like, holy shit, he looks cool as fuck. Right. You know, but it's because he also has a lot of other clothes, and he, you know, has a lot of other onstage personas too. So he's not necessarily just stuck in the past, but he can still rock something from 1976 and still make it look cool.
Do you think he was ever private sensible?
At one point, for sure.
What branch of the military is Captain Sensible so sensible in?
But I think when you age with punk, it will just be obvious whether or not you're aging gracefully or not. Because there's some people who are still clinging on to that like 16, 17-year-old vibe that is like 30 years behind them. And you can tell like it's forced and it's not really working out.
I don't know what it is, because of course somebody older than me wearing yellow bondage pants and a studded leather jacket and a blue mohawk going to a concert, it looks weird. But there's some people that can do that. And you see him at the concert and you're like, fuck yeah, you're still fucking pulling it off. And I don't know how or why there's a difference there. But I think when I look in a mirror, I see the things I can pull off and the things I can't, you know. I mean, I can still pull. It's a weird thing. I can still pull off a studded vest and a studded belt, but a studded leather jacket, I look in the mirror and like, I look too old for it. But I put on a studded vest, like, yeah, that's cool. I can rock that.
I think when I was younger, particularly when I was first getting into punk, I had this like inner drive and need to show the world how extremely punk I was all the time.
Right.
And I think what changed too as I got older is that I stopped having anything to prove to anyone.
Right.
And I don't really care so much. I care more about my own interests and what I like me getting dressed up and going outside is less about a statement of, hey world, look at me, I'm punk, you can't deny my existence. It's more just like, I think this looks cool and I like this band, so I'm gonna like put this on because I think it looks cool. But I don't have this thing from my youth where I really felt like I had something to prove.
Well, I think a lot of times when you're young, you're promoting these bands in on your jacket and vest and all that, and pants and shirt, and you want not necessarily to tell other people you're into these bands, but to tell other punks like, we can hang out because these are the bands I'm into.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're more like trying to fly a flag for people who have like minds to accept you.
Yeah.
More than telling like old people like, I'm into fucking nausea. They're like, cool. Then you should probably take some medication for that. You know what I mean? But other punks will say, oh, you're in a nausea. Cool. We can fucking hang out. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think you're trying to fucking do like a distress signal almost to other like-minded people. Like, hello, I'm here. Come hang out with me, please.
Yeah.
I'm cool. Please, if you're cool as well, then
Yeah, maybe that's a better way to put it.
I think so. Because I never felt like that. I never felt like I was dressing punk to shock old people. I felt like I was dressing punk to let other punks know, like, I was another cool person to hang out with. Maybe I was into it for the wrong thing. I don't know. That's a whole nother analysis. But that's how I felt. Like, check it out. I'm in Disfear. I'm in fucking Discharge. I'm in any Disconto.
This guy and that guy. We were talking about wearing clothes and like what you could pull off as an older punk, but
getting old, you have to wear clothes.
Getting old, you do have to wear clothes.
It's a sad and trying experience.
I think the thing we need to actually maybe discover or talk about is, what does it mean to get old as a punk,
right?
As opposed to getting old just as a normal person. Because
maybe anyone who's really haven't finished that discussion. We keep glossing over it.
People who are listening might not really understand, well, what's the difference? Yeah, so what, you like a certain kind of music, why does that affect how you get old? But as we were saying, we were kind of brought into adulthood with this sort of aesthetic of, there's no future.
Right.
You have to live as much as you can while you're young because you're not going to make it to 30, basically. And a lot of us did. I didn't honestly think I would make it to 30. 20. I really didn't think I was going to live that long.
I hit 20. It was like, oh, fuck. I'm not a teenage lobotomy anymore. What the fuck?
As you progress, you still have this sort of youth movement inside of you that's impossible to quiet. If you're really legitimately into it, it's impossible to ignore this inside of you. But you also have to contend that with actually getting older. And I remember when I was in Colorado and I was growing up, I went to a show. It was like a New Year's show or something, and there was this kind of creepy older guy at the gig. And he was...
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes the older guys can be just fucking creepy. And I don't want to be that guy.
I felt like almost all of these like early shows I was at when I was a kid, there was always this weird older guy who showed up and would always kind of act lecherous towards, any of the young women that were in attendance. And he would try to tell a story about the time he saw Black Flag in 1984 or whatever, And I remember the first time I saw this person, because this person exists in every scene and every show. There's always like this one wayward older person that never really matured and is still trying to.
But can't you mature and still do that? Isn't that what we can kind of like hash out? Is that he was creepy and weird because he never matured. But if you do mature and you're still going to concerts, I feel like you wouldn't be looked at as the creepy weird old guy. But once you do mature, Why are you still doing this?
Well, I think
You know what I mean?
I think the guy was creepy and weird because he was creepy and weird. It had nothing to necessarily do with anything else, but maybe he was probably a sexual predator or something, you know?
Right, but why are all the old punks in America creepy, weird sexual predators?
They're not. They're not at all. I think there's just the most visible ones tend to be. I feel like most of most of the old punks I know in the US are kind of like statesly, like record collecting aficionado people that are like really good at homebrewing beer and have like, you know, massive musical knowledge.
Right.
I think the creepy old stereotype I mentioned was what I, as a young person, thought getting old in punk was going to be like.
Right. I know. Me too.
You
and
know?
I didn't want to be like that.
Exactly.
You know? But how do you not? You know? I think we just
don't be a creep.
Don't be a creep.
B, learn how to age gracefully. Don't hang on to your youth that's not there anymore. Find a future.
That's it.
For you that is more valuable than the past that you came from. And if you have that, then you're going to feel young for the rest of your life, I think.
Right.
Because you always have this sort of vigor inside of you. Or else you become a predator, I guess.
Yeah, I don't want that. You know, I didn't want to be the old guy hanging out at the young teen center watching a fucking punk band. You know what I mean?
But sometimes you are that person.
But sometimes you are.
You know, and I think...
But why are you? Is it like, oh, maybe I am a creep?
No, you're not a creep. You're just an older person at a gig.
Yeah, but
that's mostly populated by young people.
But I don't know. For me, I still really like the fuck out of the music, and I still think the mentality is cool as fuck. And I still lightly dress like that, even though I try and temper it with how old I am. We're fucking old. You know, it's like, let's do an episode about being old. Like, what were we talking about? I don't know.
Get my ear hoard.
Right?
Although I have to say, as old as I feel some days, I will never feel as old as some of the people that I went to high school with who look like life has just beaten them down with like a baseball bat covered in nails.
I mean, I think that's to me, that's my whole point of life, is not looking like I got beaten down by life, but just not being beaten down by life.
Yeah.
You know, I would like to beat the shit out of life. And at the end, when I get even older and I die or whatever, I can say fucking like, I showed life what the fuck was up.
What did life do to you?
Oh my God. I thought we covered a lot of that already.
That's a whole nother podcast. Actually, I think it'd be really interesting to do an episode just about punk.
Yeah.
Because we talk about it, but we never really like.
No.
We don't really deep dive into it so much.
No. I think that's the thing. We've been doing all this dancing in and out of talking about punk when we haven't actually defined it. I don't think you can actually define it, but I think you need to know the backstory before you get the fucking joke in jokes and all of that, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, it was invented by a man named John Punk, who was
it's true,
a factory worker in rural France in 1912.
Right, and then he started mass producing it at a astronomical level, you know. And they said, "Wow, that is really punk." Yeah. He said, "Well, right, that's my name." Oh, so, okay. Rob and I have forgotten more about punk than anybody listening to this will ever know.
So,
okay, you do.
Join us next time for the punk episode where we'll learn. And
See, you can't do it either.
Well, I'm old.
I know. We're forgetting stuff. Anyway, we're going to talk about punk next episode, and thanks for joining us.
See you next time. Stay safe.
Stay safe? Who's safe?
All right.
All right. Okay, been drinking. Bye-bye. We can edit that out! We can edit that out! We can edit that out! If you like our shit, check us out on Instagram, and we have an Instagram tag. What is it?
It's We Can Edit That Out _podcast.
Right, and that's not a tag; it's a handle. Somebody told me that handle is how you say it.
It is a handle.
Yeah, that's our Instagram handle is We Can Edit That _podcast, and our Facebook is
It's We Can Edit That Out.
crazy, so clever, and original.
Yeah, apparently there's someone else on Instagram who thinks that they can just edit things out without us involved.
No, we'll edit them out.
Yeah. So whoever you are, we can edit that out on Instagram.
We're coming for you.
Yeah.
We're gonna edit you out.
Yeah. Sleep with one eye open.
So our email is
WCETO podcast@gmail.com.
I think I got a little bit southern with it. I said is.
Yeah.
That was weird.
It was a little weird.